Hey guys, it's Cece and welcome to my most ambitious reading endeavor ever. If you've read the title of this video, then you already know the concept. I am going to try to reread the entire Raven cycle, all 4 books by Maggie Stiefvater, in 24 hours. Now I'm doing this for a couple of reasons. One, I already wanted to reread the Raven cycle this year, but 2, Call Down the Hawk is coming out very shortly. It's coming out on November 5th, and so I wanted to do a reread of the series to prep for reading Call Down the Hawk. Now, if you were a frequent viewer of mine, you might know that I actually have already read Call Down the Hawk. I read an early copy back in July, but I really wanted to be able to reread the series before I read Call Down the Hawk, and because of time constraints when I had that early copy, I couldn't do that. So, I'm going to be rereading these 4 books so that on November 5th, I can read Call Down the Hawk along with everybody else and enjoy it a second time this year. Now, before we get into more specifics, I just wanted to say that this vlog was brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes in thousands of subjects. Skillshare Premium gives you unlimited access to all of these classes, and a premium membership works out to be less than $10 a month. It is an absolutely incredible place where you can learn a bunch of different stuff, and in the spirit of this video where I am challenging myself to read a lot of pages in only 24 hours, I wanted to recommend some Skillshare classes in time management and organization. Help get your life in order, help figure out how to best manage your time. It's possible through Skillshare. If you want to use the link in the description, you can get the first 2 months of your Skillshare Premium membership absolutely for free. Give that link a click to let Skillshare know that I sent you there. It would mean a lot to me, and I think Skillshare is a pretty cool thing to support. So with that out of the way, I have all 4 of my Raven Cycle books sitting here. I'm also wearing my Raven Cycle t-shirt, The Trees Speak Latin from the Dream Thieves, which is pretty cool. But here they are. All 4 Raven Cycle books by Maggie Stiefvater: The Raven Boys, The Dream Thieves, Blue Lily, Lily Blue, and The Raven King. I will be letting you know thoughts and feelings as we go along as I reread the series, and I will this time be annotating these copies. The previous 2 times that I have read the series, because this will be my 3rd read through, the previous 2 times I read it, I was reading copies that were either library copies or belonged to someone else. These beautiful hardcover copies were a gift to myself that I got for myself last Christmas, so this time I'm going to be marking them up as I read them, as I have my Harry Potter books all annotated. I also, for occasional stops and breaks, did get a bookmark. It is my Wales bookmark that I got in Wales, in Cardiff specifically, which I thought was perfect since this series is about searching for a dead Welsh king. I will say that this vlog is going to be spoilerific, which I think is kind of the only way to talk about the Raven Cycle in some parts, just because there's so much foreshadowing that it's always hard for me to keep track of what is a spoiler and what isn't. I will not be spoiling anything to do with Call Down the Hawk. Don't worry, I have that locked away in a different part of my brain. That's just for me, and that's for an eventual Call Down the Hawk reading vlog, which you will be getting, I promise. We are starting this at kind of an odd time for you, but it is a time that works better for my schedule. It is currently about 3:20 p.m. I'm gonna wait till 3:30, and then that's going to begin my 24 hours. I tend to do most of my best work in the evenings and at night, so I'm gonna start at 3:30 p.m. and try to read most of this before I go to bed. I'm way better at staying up late than waking up early. And so I will have until tomorrow, which will be October 25th at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time to finish rereading these 4 books. If it takes me longer than 24 hours, then you already know because this video is titled something differently, but for now, let's just pretend that I have this amount of skill. And with that, we can get started on reading these books, and to ring in the very first thing, I thought I would read you the first paragraph of The Raven Boys, and then I will jump in. Prologue. Blue Sergeant had forgotten how many times she'd been told that she would kill her true love. Her family traded in predictions. These predictions tended, however, to run toward the non-specific. Things like, something terrible will happen to you today. It might involve the number 6. Or, money is coming. Open your hand for it. Or, you have a big decision and it will not make itself. One of my favorite subtle things that I don't know if people have noticed necessarily before, if you're not like big into the Raven Cycle fandom on Tumblr and stuff, is that the first night on St. Mark's Eve, when Neve and Blue are in the graveyard, the first thing that happens is that a spirit touches Neve's hair, which I think is very specific, because there is a ghost in the series who has a thing for touching hair, and that's Noah. So the series never confirms or denies that, but since it seems like that's a spirit who Neve doesn't see, she doesn't say his name or anything like that, there's just an extra spirit there, I'm guessing it's Noah, and that Noah was attracted to Blue's energy. Fun little thing that Noah appears probably before any of the other Raven boys. So I feel like I'm going to mention this podcast a lot over the course of this vlog, so if you don't know, there is this podcast called The Raven Girls that is dedicated to rereading the Raven Cycle and doing like discussion episodes, and they just wrapped up season 2, which means they just wrapped up the Dream Thieves. So I might bring them up a lot, at least when it comes to rereading the first book, because I've listened to all those episodes. So there's a thing, a question that's kind of never answered in the books, that Adam really feels like someone's following them. He feels like someone is keeping track of their movements, checking out books as soon as they return them, that kind of thing. And I'm pretty sure it is the stated theory of Raven Girls, the podcast, that it was Henry who was doing all of this. I don't remember, but that has been my personal headcanon of who this could be, because I know it isn't Welk, because Welk doesn't know that they are searching after the ley lines right now. And it isn't Declan, because Declan doesn't know enough about what's going on for Declan to be the one who's checking out books and following them. So my guess is that it's Henry. Also, the way that Gansey describes his friends makes me upset inside because he loves them so much. I just got to chapter 4, which is our first Adam POV chapter, which means we're going to get a lot of him not intentionally talking about Ronan, but just constantly talking about Ronan, because that's Adam's chapters for you. Just thought I would share that. Okay, I think what I'm going to try to do from here on out is update you once, like, every hour on the hour. I feel like that might make the most sense as far as updates and making sure that I'm spending enough time reading and also enough time updating. So, it's 5:30. I've been going for 2 hours, and I'm on page 100 of The Raven Boys. I have underlined about 8 billion things, but something I wanted to talk about this time is a theory I think that was popularized on Tumblr, but it might also have been on Raven Girls, that the night Ronan first dreams Chainsaw into existence is also the night that he has seen Blue for the first time, or at least been around Blue. And there's kind of this theory that Ronan pulling Chainsaw out of his dreams is unusual. It's something bigger than he would normally dream, and in Welk's chapter immediately following that, Welk clearly says that something strange had happened in Henrietta, and, it was a noticeable difference, which means it is remarkable that Ronan has dreamt something living into existence. It matters. And so there's this theory that I find really interesting, that the reason Ronan was able to have like this special ability was because he had just met Blue, who amplifies magical abilities. Or it could be a like time is circular sort of thing, where this is the Raven Cycle, Noah knows where people are, no one knows what's happening, because it's something he's experienced before. He's not quite in time. That's why everything feels so destined in the series, because these are all things that have probably happened before in the circle of time. So maybe it's because Gansey has just had his first conversation with Blue, which means that we're getting to the bit where everything is starting. all of the players have met now. And now that Blue knows about them and knows about this quest, that is when Ronan is able to dream Chainsaw into existence. So I don't know which theory I favor more, or if they go hand in hand, but I think that is important to note, and I just wanted to talk about it. I'm just gonna keep plugging along, and I will talk to you again at 6:30. I'm on about page 160. So it's time for an update, and then probably a discussion with Brian about what we're eating for dinner. I know what we're eating for dinner. We're making steak, but like a conversation about when we start making it. So I just finished the chapter that contains the boys going to 300 Fox Way for the first time and doing their reading, which is a chapter I love. But there was a line that I underlined like 87 times. Hold on. Well, first of all, there's the bit where Blue says, or Blue thinks that time felt circular, which is 100% accurate. She's right. Gansey always says that whenever he finds a friend who is important, it feels different. He knows that they will be important to the quest, and so time feels circular in that moment because they've all met again, and that is an essential part of the journey. Also, I think it's interesting that Adam is referred to as a dreamer a couple of times in this book. I think that is such a remarkably specific thing, that Adam would be compared to a dreamer, or Gansey describes him as a dreamer awake, which is important, A, because there are dreamers in this universe, it's just not Adam, but also Adam's whole thing in the Dream Thieves is he wants to feel awake when his eyes are open. So a dreamer awake is like such a specific early reflection of that. Oh yeah, I highlighted one of my favorite lines of Adam's, which is, Adam had once told Gansey, "Rags to riches isn't a story anyone wants to hear until after it's done." Just such a good Adam line. Something that I'm just noticing this time is that we learn so much more about characters who aren't narrating than we learn about characters who are. Every chapter is full of people describing one another and people describing how they feel about each other. So we end up learning more about Adam in a Gansey chapter and more about Gansey in an Adam chapter. And I just think that that's such a reflection of how much they all love each other and how important they all are to one another. And it's part of why Blue Lily, Lily Blue is my favorite book, because it's just a book about all of them learning why they're important to one another and learning like basically about each of their traumas. Blue Lily, Lily Blue is just all of them figuring out what traumatized them in their past and learning to love each other more, and that is meaningful to me. But I just think it's an important note that you tend to learn more about the characters who aren't currently narrating. Hi, this is my 7:30 update to say that we're eating right now. So I haven't read much. I read a little bit, but I'm eating steak and tater tots and asparagus. So that's what I'm gonna do while we watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's close enough to 8:30 that I'm gonna do my 8:30 update. So I am at the bit where they are just about to walk into Cape's Water for the first time. They've just set down the helicopter and they're gonna start heading in. And I thought for this update I would talk about why I don't think Blue and Adam make sense as a couple. Because I do really like them. I think they make enough sense that it doesn't feel like nonsense that they're the two that got together first. The fundamental problem with Blue and Adam is that Blue reaffirms Adam's quietness, and what he needs is someone who's not going to reaffirm that he needs to do everything quietly. One of the first things that he says to Blue when they go on their first date is, "I think you'll find I do pretty much everything quiet," which breaks my heart in about a million different ways, and that's the problem. The problem is that he keeps trying to make himself smaller so that he doesn't exist until he has finally achieved some unmeasurable amount of success. Every time Blue describes him, she describes him as quiet. But that's what Gansey needs. He needs someone who's going to make him feel quiet inside. That's why there's the line in The Raven King where Gansey says that he knows he loves Blue because he can sleep after they talk. And Adam needs someone who sees him when all he's doing is looking, which he specifically says in this book. The only person who ever catches him watching is Ronan. And that is one of the reasons why I think Blue being attracted to Adam first makes sense, because Gansey is so apart from her type that she never would have gone for him. But it never would have worked as a long-term relationship because Blue was meant for someone else, just like Adam needed someone else besides Blue. It's 9:30 and I've changed into pajama pants in an attempt to be more comfortable while I read. This is gonna take a long time. This is gonna possibly take the entire 24 hours. I think it's possible that I overestimated my reading speed skills, but it's fine. I'm on page 280, and they have just found out that Noah is not actually alive. So I cried like a little bit for the first time. It's the bit after they go into Cabe's water properly and they speak to the trees. And there's the line that's somewhat iconic from this book. Gansey says that before they actually properly go exploring, he wants to find out everything they can about it before they continue exploring so that they can make sure it's safe. And the paragraph is, but that wasn't what happened. What happened was they drove to Harry's and parked the Camaro next to an Audi and a Lexus, and Gansey ordered flavors of gelato until the table wouldn't hold any more bowls, and Ronan convinced the staff to turn the overhead speakers up, and Blue laughed for the first time at something Gansey said, and they were loud and triumphant and kings of Henrietta because they'd found the ley line and because it was starting. It was starting. Which is one of my favorite lines of the entire series, but also because I know that the pilot for the Raven Cycle series that Maggie wrote is titled It Was Starting, It Was Starting, which made me very emotional when I first found that out, because that's such an evocative and perfect line to encapsulate this book. So now we get to the bit where Ronan is grumpy and grieving his friend that he didn't know was dead, and Blue gets to explore Neve's bedroom. I also, got a tiny bit emotional at, Gansey's backstory. Gansey finally telling Blue the story of his first death, and his quest. But that's just because I love Gansey. Anything involving Gansey makes me emotional, so unsurprising. Also, I am listening to a playlist I discovered a while ago called The Trees Speak Latin, which is instrumental music that is like the Raven Cycle. I will leave that Spotify link down in the description below, but I love listening to this playlist when I read this book because it sets the tone perfectly, and it helps me focus on what I'm reading. It's 10:30 and I'm still on the first book. Fuck. Lady's grumpy because it's time for her to be fed, and I'm doing this instead of feeding her. Are you grumpy? She's grumpy.
She's the grumpiest.
Sorry, it's not time yet. So I have 40 pages of the Raven Boys left. I'm almost done. It's gonna take me half an hour. Also, possibly this bit took me longer because this is where shit starts getting super intense. I just basically finished the chapters of Adam leaving home for good, which are incredibly rough chapters. They're rough because everyone's fighting. I mean, they're rough because it's Adam finally getting out of an abusive home. So, it's heavy emotional shit, which is why it's taking me longer as well. I've just been reading this chapter, the chapter where Gansey says that he refuses to let anyone go searching for Glendower until they can find a safe way to do it. And reflecting on the fact that in this book, everyone acts like they know each other, but none of them do. There's a bit where Adam says he doesn't care about the risk of waking the ley lines, and Gansey says, you have nothing to lose, and then to Ronan he says, and you don't care if you live or die. That makes you both bad judges. But neither of those things are true. Adam still has at least one thing to lose because he's going to lose that last thing by the end of this book. And Ronan does care if he lives or dies. And Blue says you have nothing to gain to Gansey, but he does because it's the thing he's been seeking the whole time, which is just for people to understand him and see him as more than just an accumulation of stuff. He's desperate for his life to have any kind of meaning, so he does have something to gain. And I think it's so interesting that they can all look at one another and boldly claim that they know what's going on in each other's heads, and that's just not the case at all. I think that that's why I have such a hard time with this as the first book. It's my least favorite of the 4 books. I still love it, but it's my least favorite because they're all so mean to each other in this book. And I know that they're still mean to each other later, but they gain some kind of understanding of each other later. And I know the Dream Thieves is also going to be difficult because Adam and Gansey are so horrible to each other in the Dream Thieves. But yeah, I'm just thinking about how none of them know each other. Just stop being mean to each other. Just love each other already. It makes my heart sad when you say these horrible things that they're definitely all going to remember for the rest of their lives in their worst moments. Adam is going to remember that he said these things, and Gansey's going to remember that he said these things, and it just makes me sad. Now I'm going to feed Lady, and I'm going to finish this book. Okay, instead of updating you at 11:30, I'm going to update you now at 11 p.m. Because I finished the Raven Boys. I did it! I love this series so much. I don't know if you can tell. I don't know if I've been obvious about the fact that I really love this series, but I do. That book took me a very long time to read, so let's cross our fingers that the Dream Thieves takes less time to read, because it's kind of late. But since I started the first book by reading the first couple paragraphs aloud, I thought I would start in on the Dream Thieves by reading the first couple of lines of this aloud. Prologue. A secret is a strange thing. There are 3 kinds of secrets. One is the sort everyone knows about, the sort you need at least 2 people for. One to keep it, one to never know. The second is a harder kind of secret, one you keep from yourself. Every day, thousands of confessions are kept from their would-be confessors, none of these people knowing that their never-admitted secrets all boil down to the same 3 words. I am afraid. And then there is the third kind of secret, the most hidden kind, a secret no one knows about. Perhaps it was known once, but it was taken to the grave. Or maybe it is a useless mystery, arcane and lonely, unfounded because no one ever looked for it. Yay, Ronan book! It's half an hour past midnight, and I just got an alert that my camera's dying. I'm about 80 pages into the Dream Thieves now. This book is so difficult because with the Raven Boys, whenever I have thoughts, they're simple enough that I can just sort of jot them down on the pages, and the problem with the Dream Thieves is that I like it a lot more, but a lot of the lines I like, there's so much to unpack in each line that I just end up underlining it because I could never summarize everything that I want to say about that line in a short notation. I wrote down that I think the themes of this, I know that these are very specific themes as they relate to Ronan, but in general I think they are themes that define this book. Are repression, silence, and secrets. Secrets is obvious. It's stated in the first line, in the prologue, in the epilogue. Everything about this book is about what people aren't saying to each other. And that makes it kind of difficult to read because, again, everyone's being mean, and I'm like, just be nice to each other. Even though right now they maybe don't deserve each other being nice. I think another thing that I've noticed is that Adam and Ronan are perfect for each other in that they both experience attraction in ways that they probably shouldn't. Adam, whenever he's attracted to someone, always describes it like a physical pain. Like, he's attracted to Blue like a heart attack. Buddy, it should not feel like a heart attack. I'm gonna need you to take it down a notch. But he describes Ronan the same way later, so it's just the way he feels. And Ronan experiences attraction as anger, probably because it's about repression. But like, when Gansey looks perfectly normal shopping in the Dollar City, all Ronan wants to do is destroy something. So neither of them are particularly healthy about the ways that they experience attraction and longing, which is probably why they can't be together yet. They both need to get a bit more of a handle on those unhealthy things. Also, this is such a funny book. Like, they know each other better now, so they know how to joke with one another. And they can joke while Blue is working at Nino's, and they can joke when they're fighting, and I have Dream Thieves emotions. And I'm drinking Coca-Cola at midnight to both stay awake and to honor Adam, Coca-Cola boy. It is a little past 1:30 in the morning, but we were doing bedtime preparations with the animals. So I am on page 155 of the Dream Thieves. This book is so gay. Like, I know I already talked about how important repression is in this book, but this book is so gay because it's so much about Ronan, and it's so much about Ronan repressing and being sad, and so much of what he's repressing and being sad about is being gay. And, like, also grieving his father, and also struggling to figure out what he is when what he is doesn't make sense, and when he's magical in a world that is not necessarily magical. It's not just Ronan being gay. Everything about this book is gay. From, like, Adam intentionally describing Ronan as savagely handsome. Unnecessary. He just had to say that. Very gay of him. But also, they just got to the barns, and there's this line, "I remember," Gansey said thoughtfully to Ronan, "when you used to smell like this." Which is like the most homoerotic thing that you could say to your buddy. Who just says stuff like that? I know Gansey loves his friends, but I'm gonna need him to take it down at least 11 notches. But I love the barns. God, I love the barns. It's so interesting because the barns is one of those locations that I've read so much about in fan fiction that sometimes I'm not sure what is true in the books and what I've just built for myself in my brain from desperately trying to understand more about this place. Oh, sorry, one more thing. If we're talking about how gay this book is, we've just passed, like, the gayest lines ever to be written. When they go and collect Blue to bury the body of the night horror. She wore a dress Ronan thought looked like a lampshade. Whatever sort of lamp it belonged on, Gansey clearly wished he had one. Ronan wasn't a fan of lamps. I literally love that line so much that, I have a Raven Cycle side blog. If you don't know this, on Tumblr, I have a Raven Cycle blog. It's linked down in the description. One of the lines in my bio for my Raven Cycle side blog is decidedly a fan of lamps, because I've just got to reclaim how gay that is and repurpose it for my own uses. But yeah, it's almost 2 a.m. I'm gonna try to read a bit more of this. And then I'm gonna go to sleep. And Brian is going to knock on my door and wake me up at a truly horrifying hour. Which is when Brian usually starts working, aka 6:30 in the morning. But I'm gonna see how much more of this I can get through before I fall asleep. It's now 2:30, and I have an update on the gayest book in this series. I just read the scene where they all go out into the boat in the, like, man-made lake with Orla, which is one of my favorite scenes in this series. When Orla jumps out into the water after Blue so that both of them can be in the water. And Adam and Gansey can't stop looking. Ronan just laughs and laughs and laughs. And all I can think is him watching this display and going, these fucking heterosexuals. Just that mystified gay laugh in the face of such heterosexuality. It's the greatest. And he's such a bastard about it too later on. When all the boys are sitting there thinking that maybe they should have jumped in. Ronan ran a hand over his shaved head. I didn't want to mess up my hair. Like, this gay bitch. I have noticed a few instances of Call Down the Hawk, like, foreshadowing, but it's fairly easy to say that because this is a series that was always supposed to be about Ronan, so of course the book that is most about Ronan is going to have foreshadowing for a series about Ronan. I really should go to bed though. It's 2:30 in the morning. and Brian's gonna wake me up at 6:30. So I'm gonna try to go to sleep. Good morning. I did a bad job of waking up at 6:30, but because 6:30 is a terrible hour, no one should have to wake up then. I'm very tired, but I'm still dedicated to reading as much as possible in these first 24 hours. So I am going to go get in the shower, have a quick shower, and then I will make some coffee and some breakfast. And I'll probably start reading actually for real at like 8:30. I'm a little worried about how much of the Raven King I can realistically read before 3:30 today, but we will find out how much I can handle, how fast I can read once I'm actually awake. I am on page 300 of The Dream Thieves. This book has so many favorite scenes in it. I don't even know how to be analytical about it. I know I've said that like a billion times in the previous updates, but it's because I just want to gush about how many favorite scenes are in this book. But also I just read the scene recently where when Gansey is in the midst of, I would say it's a panic attack most of the time when Gansey is describing how he's feeling when he says he's undone. He's describing panic attacks. He's also describing dissociative episodes because he is an anxiety-filled person who is falling apart at the seams. And at this point in the series, most of his friends don't realize that. They see the smile he pastes on, and they assume that he is always that, and that he couldn't be more complicated than that. But yeah, Gansey had a panic attack, and for the first time he had someone to call. He could just talk to Blue, and she could be uncomplicated. She could just tell him about her day, and then he could sleep. And it's one of the most meaningful things in the world. I think the problem I have with this book, simple. I love this book. It's my second favorite of the series. But, it's sort of how I feel about the first How to Train Your Dragon movie. Stay with me. I love the How to Train Your Dragon series. They're very meaningful to me, but I often can't go back and watch that first movie, and it's for the very simple reason that I hate how mean they are to dragons in that movie. Are you still with me? I just can't watch Hiccup be dismissive of, dragons in general, but I also can't watch the rest of Hiccup's family be dismissive of dragons, and it's sort of the same way I feel about this book, that I know that they're going to come to a greater understanding, and first we have to go through this bit where they don't understand one another, but I don't like reading it because it makes me sad. I want everyone to be able to love each other and be able to have conversations when they disagree, and that's just not at the point we're at with these characters. This was a weird update, but that's how I'm feeling. I don't think I'm gonna be able to manage this, but I'm gonna keep pushing through and reading as much as I can. It's 10:30, and I don't know what to do because I'm falling asleep. The way I do right before I get sick, where I'm just like exhausted in every inch of my body. Like, that's not the best feeling. I'm on page 387 of The Dream Thieves, so I read a lot of pages in an hour, but I feel like I'm not taking them in the right way anymore, or maybe that's just always how I feel when I read The Dream Thieves. There's just some level of distance, because this book is written in such a distant way. I just read one of my favorite scenes, the first time that Blue and Gansey go driving together. They hug, and they almost kiss, and they agree to never speak about it again. It just causes such an ache in my heart. Also, there are so many different moments that I've had while reading this that I think there are so many things that Gansey's going to regret that he's said. I think it's important when you talk about favorite characters that you're able to note their weaknesses as well as their strengths. You have to be able to understand their flaws too. And I feel like this is the book where Gansey's flaws are most present. It's where he says unforgivable things. It's where he says that Ronan is fixable. implying that Ronan is just a pawn and Gansey has the ability to fix him. He says about Kavinsky he needs to come to terms with his sexuality, which will no doubt haunt Gansey later. This is when the weakness of these characters is pronounced, because it is at a moment when things are the most difficult, because not only are the things leading up to the quest difficult, but on top of that, no one is quite being honest with each other. No one is quite saying what they mean. And so, on top of there being this difficulty, there's also silence, and so there isn't support from other people. And on top of everything, it's this hot, oppressive summer that is just... They describe it so often that it's hard not to feel anxious reading the book, and that's another one of the points of this book, is just that, like, low-grade anxiety that's running through it, and how much everyone wants something, and none of them understand yet that they can all want the same thing. This book is complicated. I'm gonna try to read more for as long as I possibly can. I'm thinking I might have to extend this little rereading endeavor to 48 hours, because I'm so tired. Well, instead of finishing the Dream Thieves, I fell asleep till 1 p.m. So I think at this point, we can all agree that this is going to be a 48-hour read of the Raven Cycle, right? Because it's 2:30 p.m. What do you guys think? Do you guys think I can read 2 books in an hour? Just read 2 books in an hour. The other 2 books took me like 5 hours each, but these 2... I got this. Okay, so this is gonna be a 48-hour read. But good news, I finished the Dream Thieves! Hurrah and hooray! Thank you. Brian's very happy for me that I finished the Dream Thieves. Brian, what do you know about the Dream Thieves?
In the Dream Thieves, the guy who has dream-making powers finds out his dad has an Orby thing in the dream realm, and his dad dreams, but the other guy, he's called one of them's a dream thief and the other one has a different word for them, and there are family members who are dreamed, and no one's a raven. You know, I'm not gonna take points off. Well, there is one raven. Fuck. Chainsaw. Chainsaw's a raven? Yeah. I forget every time. So I love this book. I love this book because it is Ronan's. But Ronan. You know Ronan. Do you know what his brothers' names are? There's one that starts with an M. I don't remember if it's Matthew or Michael. It's Matthew. It's Matthew. Yes. And then his other brother is... You know that you were talking about him yesterday. Declan. Yeah. Okay. He did it. They're both Jason Momoa character names, so I can get it that way. Oh god. I wonder how much of a video I could fill up of Brian just like haphazardly putting together what he knows about the Raven Cycle through my like rantings and ravings. Blue's a girl. Blue's a girl. I know that. She's definitely not a big ox. No. No, that would be Babe. So this book has 2 of my like favorite lines. In that it has the line where right before Ronan takes the night horror out into the world to fight whatever monster Kavinsky's created, Opal, though she doesn't have that name yet, I guess, in this book, asks him, why do you hate you? And Ronan finally gets to say, I don't. Which truly made me sob the first couple of times I read it, because it's a big deal for Ronan to not hate himself anymore, especially after getting a revelation in this book that he wasn't dealing with the suicide attempt that Gansey thought he had been dealing with. But also, the other
great line at the end of this book is Adam's second secret was Adam Parrish. Because you've got him coming to terms with being gay, which is good. I'm very proud of him. But then also admitting that he loves Adam Parrish is a lot. And I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of him. I don't know if I have any more, like, in-depth thoughts than that. This book, I think, would be the most difficult to adapt of all 4 of these books, because I don't know how you do the big dream monster fight at the end on TV. The way that dream monsters are described is, like, they don't make logical sense to the human brain. You look at them and there's just no logic to them, and I don't know how you adapt that.
You just don't show it.
But it's the entire climax of the novel.
Right, but you just show the person who is fighting it.
But it's 2 dream monsters fighting.
Yes.
Each other.
Oh. Well, then you have someone describe it afterwards.
Engaging television.
Yeah.
I just really doubt Sci-Fi's budget for a double dream monster battle. I just doubt them a little bit. We can hope, but I do think this is going to be the book that's the most difficult to adapt. I think the second most difficult thing to adapt is probably the demon in The Raven King, because that's also a thing that's like, it's not supposed to make sense when you look at it. But then again, they could just make it look like a bee and skip over things not making sense. They're like, it's fine. It's just a demon who's a big bee. Just ignore it. This is the true difficulty. I loved this. It's obviously a 5-star read. And now that it is about 2:40, I am going to start reading Blue Lily Lily Blue. Hey, editing CC here to say that this vlog was about 1 billion years too long, so I'm cutting it in half. This is day 1. You already know because of the title. So, to wrap up thoughts about The Dream Thieves, I think it is a deeply interesting book, but I also think it's the most complex of the 3, so it's the hardest to talk about. Clearly I loved it, clearly I talked about a lot of why I loved it, but if this section was a little lighter on the commentary and discussion, that is why. The second half is going to be a lot more personal, talking about my reasons for loving Blue Lily Lily Blue, and talking about my own previous relationship and how it connects to the books, so keep an eye out for that vlog. It'll be up shortly. But until you can watch that, thank you so much for watching this vlog. Be sure to go check out Skillshare. The link will be in the description below. Clearly, I needed some pointers on time management, so maybe I should have taken my own advice and watched some of those beforehand. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!